Okay, so that's been done for us. But if I had a number in front of this absolute value sign, whether add, subtract, multiply, or dividing it, I'd have to move it to the other side. If I had a number behind it, add, subtract, multiply, or divide it, I would move it to the other side too. So that I have this situation. Just the absolute value on the left equals some number on the right. Okay? And then there's two problems that we can get from this. All right? And those two problems are x minus 2 over 5 equals 11. This original one, nothing changes. Or, again, this part doesn't change. X minus 2 over 5, that stays the same. But this changes to negative 11. Because, remember, the absolute value of negative 11 is what? 11, right? So this quantity in here can be positive 11 or negative 11, and then when I take the absolute value, I get that 11. Now, how do we move this 5 over to solve for x? Multiply, right? That's division, right? We're dividing by 5, so we're going to multiply by 5, both sides, in both problems. That way I get that 5 moved out from the left side and get it over to the right side. So those would cancel each other out and leave me x minus 2. And then I get 55 over here. Same thing happens here. Those 5s cancel. And leaves me x minus 2. And this time it's negative 55. And then all we got to do is add 2 to both sides to solve for x. So one answer is 57. And the other answer is negative 53. Both of those numbers, if I plug into this original and then take the absolute value, we'll get 11. Okay, so remember there's two answers to those types of problems. Okay? So looking at last night's homework, I want to go over some because we have a few people that weren't quite sure what to do on a couple. So number 2, I'm just going to do 2 and 4 because those are kind of tricky sometimes. When people just see a bunch of a bunch of letters and no numbers, they're not quite sure what to do sometimes. So we're solving for t. There was a little t afterwards. Whatever letter that was after it, that was the one you're supposed to get by itself. Okay, so that means since the t is on the right, I want to get all this stuff over to the left side. So since this is s minus s times d times t, I got to move this first s over. And that's a positive s right now, so when I move it over, I'm going to make it negative or subtract it. So I could just write p minus s, because I don't know what they are, and they're not like terms. S minus s cancel out. And I got this, don't forget that minus sign there, or negative sign. Negative s times d times t. So since I'm multiplying these together, to move them over, what do? Divide, right? Do the opposite to go to the opposite side. So my answer to this is p minus s over negative s times d. My t's by itself. I think my book had it the other way. My book switched these around and went s minus p and made that positive. So they took the negative upstairs instead of leaving it into the down here. So either way is right. Does that one make sense? We got a bunch of letters, a bunch of variables. We can still get one of them by itself. Not very hard. Same procedure you guys have been doing all through high school. So don't let this stuff intimidate you. You guys can handle it. This time we're getting P by itself. Well, in this problem, we have two P's. So that makes it a little bit more trickier, or a little trickier. So what did we say yesterday if we have to get a variable by itself and it shows up more than once? Liam? Do you remember? Well, we want to turn it in from 2 to 1. So how do we do that? We don't just cancel one. We did it a few weeks ago, remember? We did a lot of this a few weeks ago. GCF factoring, right? You got to factor out the P. Think of P as the GCF. So it's going to be A equals P times the quantity. So there's two terms in here then. Well, what's P divided by P? 1. And then PRT divided by P will just leave me the R and the T. So it looks like that when I factor out that P. Okay, so if you get one of these on the quiz Friday, where you get multiple letters of the one you're supposed to get by itself, if there's other stuff without P, move it over, and then leave the stuff with the P's or whatever you're looking for, and factor that letter out. Then you go from multiple ones to one of them. Okay? And now, remember, when I factor it out, that means P times this. So how do I move this to the other side? You divide by it. That whole thing. So you can divide by 1 plus RT, and put you to one side, you got to do the other. So our answer is P on the right, and then we get A over 1 plus RT. Then we got P by itself. Questions?
Doesn't matter the order you write it.
What do you mean by order?
Like, can you write P first, then equals?
Yeah, you can write P equals, yeah. Does it make a little better sense? I know that confuses some people. It's kind of tough at first. Once you practice a few of them, then you get the hang of it. Okay, number 20 and 22 were both like perimeter type problems. One was a rectangle, 20, and you're supposed to find the length and the width. The length ended up being 36 meters and the width 19 meters. And then the other one was a triangle. So instead of 4 sides, you only have 3 sides to worry about. And the longest side was 69 miles, and then the 2 other sides were the same, and they were 46 miles. So let's do one of those two. Which one would you guys prefer me to do? The rectangle one or the triangle one? Triangle? Okay. That was 22. So just draw a picture of a triangle, and then let's see what it says. A triangle has a perimeter of 161 miles, so I'm just going to write that in the middle. P for perimeter, 161 miles. Okay, so that's a big triangle. And each of the 2 smaller sides, so it's telling us it's one of those isosceles triangles, those 2 other sides are equal, is 2/3 the length of the longest side. So we'll say this bottom one is the longest side. We don't know how long it is, so we're going to make it X. Now the unknown, that's what the variables represent, an unknown. But we're going to write the other sides in terms of X, right? And it said these 2 shorter sides were 2/3 as long as this one. So how do I write that? Yeah, just 2/3 X. And again, for perimeter problems, what do we do with the sides? To find the perimeter? We add them all together, right? Now, how do I add 2/3 plus 2/3 plus 1? Can we change 1 to thirds? Is that okay? Common denominator? So Ashton, 1 is how many thirds?
1 and 3/3.
Very good. Yeah, whatever the denominator is, you just put it over itself to get the 1, right? So I got 2 plus 2 is 4, plus 3 is 7 thirds x equals our perimeter. So that's what our equation looks like. Does that make sense? If you wanted to write 2 and 1/3, that's the same as 7 thirds. 2 and 1/3 x, that would work. But what's easy to do now with that 7 thirds to get it moved? Multiply by the reciprocal, right? The 3/7. So we're going to multiply both sides by 3/7. And that comes out to, when you multiply, just go 161 times 3 divided by 7. Or you can just do it like this too. 161 times, and then just put 3/7 in parentheses. And that just means 3 divided by 7, right? And it comes out to 69 miles. All right, so this one, the long side is 69 miles. But we were supposed to find the other two sides too, so what do I do? Right, 69 times 2/3. So we just go times, parentheses, 2 divided by 3. And that's the 46. Does that make better sense to you guys now? The other one is very similar, it's just a rectangle. Okay? And you add up those 4 sides to equal the perimeter, which was 110. And, I'll do a quick picture of it for you, just so you can see. There's your rectangle, and then it says the width is 1 meter more than half the length. So if I make the length x, these would be 1/2 x plus 1 more than half the length. So add up the 4 sides equal, I think it was 110. So you just add the 4 sides up equal 110. Okay. The last two, 35 and 36, were like the last one we did yesterday, investment problems. And number 35, we split up $14,000 into 2 investments. The 8% investment, they put $7,600 worth of the money in. And for the 6.5% investment, they did $6,400 in. For 36, they had $7,500 to work with. 6,000 of it went in at 5%, and 1,500, the rest of it went in at 7%. Which one of those two would you like to look at? Because I know we're still having a little bit of trouble with those. 35 or 36? 5? Okay. All right, so 35 says this. An investment advisor invested $14,000 in 2 accounts. So information they're giving us is we got this much money. 2 accounts, so like 10 and 4, or 7 and 7, or 8 and 6. They're splitting it up. Right? We're supposed to figure out how the split was. One was 8% annual simple interest, the other was 6.5% annual simple interest. So those are our interest rates. And then with those two investments in 1 year, they made $1,024. So interest, they made, what's that much? Okay, so that information, we can figure out how much they put in each one. That's what we're supposed to do. Okay, so, Tasha, do you want to make the 8% the X dollars or the 6.5% X dollars? 8, okay. And again, it doesn't matter. All right, so one of them is X. It doesn't matter which one, but the other one has to be 14,000 minus X. okay? The total amount minus the X dollars. Like if I told you this X was $10,000, right away you could tell me, well, that leaves 4,000 for this, right? Because you know that you're gonna subtract 10,000 from 14,000, right? But when we get X dollars, we're not sure what to do. We do the same thing, okay? So this would be 14,000 minus X. And there's a little formula for interest. It's I equals PRT, principal times rate times time. Principal is the amount of money, so X or 14,000 minus X. The rate are these percents. In the times in years, well, they told us 1 year, right? Annually, that means 1 year. So we don't really worry about the T because it's a 1. So the amount of interest at this one would be X times 8%, but we don't put 8, we put what for 8%?
0.0.
Yeah, 0.08. Remember, 8% means 800ths, which is 0.08. So when we put it in an equation, don't forget to move the decimal point 2 places to the left. So 6.5 is 0.065. And again, you just multiply times the amount of money, the interest rate, and then you're going to do addition to find the total. And they gave us the total interest was 1024. So this is what our equation looks like. 36 is the same way. Okay, we had 5% and 7%. So you're going to go 0.05x plus 0.07, and it was $7,500. So this would be 7,500 minus x equals, I think it was 405. Okay, so you set them up the same way, and then you just finish it up. You got to distribute first. That's 0.065. And then move that answer over, combine the like terms, and then divide. So we got 0.08x plus 14,000 times 0.065. $910. And remember, this times negative x is minus 0.065x. Take the 910 over, gotta subtract it. From here, you guys know what to do. All right, so 1024 minus 910. $114. And 80 minus 65 is 15, right? So 0.015 x, and then divide by the 0.015. Again, if you get a negative, you did something wrong, because we're looking for an amount of money that should be positive. So the 114 divided by 0.015. Oops, no negative. I'll hit that. I don't know why I was thinking that. It's $7,600. Okay, so we go back to the beginning. What do we make X? 8%, right? So they invested $7,600 at the 8%. And then what do I do to find the rest, that 6.5%? Subtract from 14,000, right? And what's that, 6,400? When I subtract 7,600 from 14,000. Does that help going over that one again? Questions? So nothing new today. Just giving you the practice quiz. Solving equations, solving some absolute value equations. There's one of these. I forgot to put it on your paper, so I got it on the next slide. So make sure you add that, and then a couple word problems. So add this one as your number 9. There's 8 problems, now there's 9. because there will be one like that on the quiz. I just forgot to put it on the practice quiz.
Contemporary issues. That's my country.
Oh, that's your country.
For right now, yeah.
You're welcome.
You okay? You look like you're struggling a little bit.
No, I'm fine.
He's struggling.
You get in trouble, Michael?
No.
I left a message at your house, that you give me a hard time, picking on Ashton.
He goes
Yeah,
down.
if I sit with you, your dad said he's gonna take care of you. No, I just left a message. Did you get the message? Oh, okay.
What I want you to do is. Yeah. He talked to us, he talked to you on practice. Of course, tomorrow. But if you do, they can do it for you. And then, they're gonna, they bring it through. This is probably.
See, I'm back in the release.
Why don't you know?
That's fine. Yeah.
So we want to.
Did you watch the presidential debate?
Last time? Yeah, for about 10 minutes, and that was enough.
I woke up pretty early this morning. I will watch it. I looked up on YouTube. I was like two middle schoolers just going at each other all the time.
Yeah.
I feel like high schoolers have better debates than that. Actually, I know
Yeah,
for
at
a
least
fact.
let each other talk, right?
Yeah, I know for a fact you have better debates than that. Because.
It shows some consideration, right?
Adam Maurer was getting mad.
Yeah, I know. It's hard. Felt bad for him because it's hard for him to control. Yeah, so don't forget to add number 9 on. There will be 9 on the quiz.
What? Michael? What wants to bring you guys? I'm watching.
Like an ad for ads on YouTube without doing that. Like every show ever existed.
I mean, so it kind of does. I'm gonna watch them. I need to show.